1 in 5 Americans will suffer from clinical depression in their lifetime, and suicide is a leading cause of death in adult Americans. Until recently, the tools to fight this disease have not matched the extent of this huge problem. Joining me now is world-renowned neuropsychiatrist and neuroscientist Dr. David Feifel. Dr. Feifel and his team at the UCSD Center for Advanced Treatments are pioneering and utilizing several cutting-edge treatments for psychiatric disorders. Thank you, Dr. Feifel, for joining us. You and your team are really helping out many people, changing their lives for the better. Tell us about the prevalence of depression here in the U.S. and worldwide.
The prevalence is really shocking. I think a lot of people don't recognize just how high the prevalence is. You would mention that 1 in 5 Americans will suffer from clinical depression in their lifetime. In any given year, about 9% of Americans will have a depression. The World Health Organization, which is the health arm of the United Nations, ranks clinical depression as the 4th leading cause of days of productive life loss and death. And they're projecting that by the year 2020, it's going to be number 2, only behind cardiovascular disease. And for women, it'll be number 1. Now, what's really, I think, also shocking is that the rates are really increasing. That we're seeing not only that the rates are high, but that they're increasing. The rates for American adults have just about doubled over the past decade. And shockingly, in kids, the rate is increasing by about 23% per year.
That's unbelievable. Why do you think that is? Why is depression growing in numbers?
That's a really great question. I don't think anyone has the definitive answer for that. There's a lot of research into why that's happening. I think part of the explanation is the way our society is changing in terms of increased stress and lifestyle habits, and also I think the supportive structure of traditional, the more traditional society of a nuclear family and an extended family. We don't see that as we have more and more mobility.
Okay, let's talk about the symptoms of depression and how debilitating it is for someone who is actually suffering from it. Because the people who haven't dealt with depression, they just don't know.
Right. It is one of the things I think that in terms of medical conditions, it's probably the hardest thing for people who don't suffer from depression to recognize. People who suffer from depression can sometimes really look on the outside normal, fully functioning, but on the inside they are completely devastated. They find it hard to get out of bed in the morning. Everything seems bleak. When it gets bad enough, they actually can't get out of bed. They see no hope. Everything is distorted by the depression. The source is the brain, distorts their perception of their future. One of the really significant things that happens in depression is that the reward centers in our brain that fire and allow us to feel pleasure and anticipate pleasure in the future shut down for people with depression, so that nothing really seems enjoyable. Things that they used to love doing before seem really flat and uninspiring.
Would you say it's a disease much like cancer? Someone can't help whether they get cancer or not, and then you just have to treat the cancer like you would have to treat depression.
Absolutely correct, Taylor. And I wish more and more people would recognize that, because we tend to think that people's behavior and motivation is under their control, whereas something that happens to their body is not. But really, you need to think of depression as a disease of the organ called the brain, and just like the kidney or the liver or the heart can malfunction because of a disease, so can the brain, and it is the seat of how we feel. And so if it's malfunctioning, there's not much people can do to correct it on their own.
Let's talk about the treatments you have at the center and how you get the brain to start firing right and give it a good tune-up, and so it's running correctly, and so people can go on to lead happier, healthier lives.
Right. Well, one of the motivations for creating the Center for Advanced Treatments that we've created at UC San Diego was the fact that we, until recently, have not had the kind of treatment tools to match this really significant medical burden of depression and anxiety, which, by the way, often goes along with the depression. Medications have been the mainstay of treating depression for many decades, along with talk therapy. Both can be helpful for a lot of people, but for a lot of people, they just don't cut it. And so I would see many patients sent to me by their psychiatrist because they've tried all the medications and they've tried the talk therapy, and there's really nothing they could do. And I realize that there needs to be a place that brings together some of the really exciting, innovative things that are being developed and are currently available in the field of psychiatry to treat this disorder. One of those things is a technique called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS for short. TMS is really a paradigm shift in psychiatry. As I mentioned, for the past 60 years or so, the idea is that depression is primarily a chemical imbalance, and that the medications target that chemical imbalance. But we realize that there's great limitations. TMS actually targets the other function of the brain. In addition to being a machine that uses chemicals, it is also a machine that relies on electrical impulses. The brain cells themselves fire electrical impulses that eventually release the chemicals. So interestingly, the chemicals are there to facilitate the electrical firing. Now, with depression, just like every other brain disease, what happens is there are parts of the brain where the firing starts to become perturbed. And TMS uses a very innovative approach of reactivating those areas of the brain that have become shut down in depression with a pulsed magnet. It is a technique where we place a specially designed high-strength magnet over the areas of the skull, just above the areas of the brain that are underactive, and through a series of pulsed magnetic stimuluses over time, we are hopefully able to kind of get those areas to start firing more. We create molecular changes in the brain cells, and it's really a different way of treating depression that really wasn't around 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So TMS really is one of the focal points of the center, as well as other things that we have brought to bear to bring to this fight against depression.
You've had great success with it. How about the other treatment that you have, ketamine? Talk about that.
Yeah, ketamine is a fascinating new treatment also for depression. This is ketamine is a drug that's been around and approved for use in humans since the 60s as an anesthetic and also as in some cases as a painkiller. But we never recognized until very recently that at lower doses it also can produce dramatic effects on depression. So several seminal studies found that when ketamine was infused to patients who had depression that had failed all the medications and all the talk therapies, a large percentage of these patients had a complete resolution of their depression within hours, which is not something we see with almost any other medication or technique in the field of psychiatry. So that was really revolutionary. One of the drawbacks is that usually for any given ketamine treatment, the benefits last a duration of anywhere from a couple days to maybe a couple weeks. So we are working on ways at the center to extend that wonderful benefit. And ketamine and TMS are two of the tools that we use often in combination because we really believe that the people who come to us who have already tried and failed all the standard things have a very, very virulent form of the disease that requires bringing to bear all the tools in conjunction to get them better. It's really a formidable foe. We need to use everything. We have people who tell us in no uncertain terms that they would no longer be on this earth were it not for the help that they were able to get at our center. Again, I wish we were able to do that 100%, but I believe we're going to get there. And right now we are having remarkable successes. And we got to keep in mind that every year 35,000 Americans take their lives, most of those as a result of depression. And so there's a huge need for better treatments and centers like the one at UCSD that that make available to patients all the latest cutting-edge treatments.
Well, people come from all over the world to see you, and I see why. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for changing people's lives
Well,
and
thank
saving
you.
them. If you want more information about Dr. David Feifel and his tremendous work and the exciting life-changing treatments that they are doing at UCSD Center for Advanced Treatments, go to san diego tms.com.